On Friday, March 13th, 2020, all Quincy public school employees left our buildings, unaware that we wouldn't return until the fall. But my mind wasn't focused on that future just yet. It was my birthday, and I had planned to celebrate with my brother. Despite the promise of revelry, my thoughts were scattered and apprehensive. I felt tense rather than celebratory, having spent the day fielding worried messages from my sons, who were reading unsettling news about COVID. I was already feeling overwhelmed, even before the reality of the shutdown set in. Earlier that week, on Monday morning, March 9th, I had received a call about one of my students who was absent. His situation was complicated. He didn't know his father, and his mother was in and out of jail. That morning, she hadn't woken him up for school, and he'd missed the bus, leaving him stranded at home. I rode with Officer Humke, our school's resource officer, to fetch him from his house at 3rd and Chestnut. When we arrived, Officer Humke asked me to wait on the sidewalk while he went to the door. Officers had been called to this house on several other occasions for various trouble, firearms, domestic violence, and other situations. I kept my distance, but as soon as the door opened, my student ran to me, nearly tripping over the broken steps in front of his house. He clung to me, burying his face in my coat, and whispered, "I am so hungry." In his eyes, I saw the stark need that hadn't been met since I last saw him. We stopped by McDonald's, where he devoured his breakfast sandwiches and hash browns as if he hadn't eaten in days. As that week before my birthday wore on and rumors of a shift to remote work began to spread, I couldn't stop thinking about the vital needs of my students. For many, school was a lifeline, offering much more than academics. It was a place of safety and security. Moving to remote learning felt like a wall between those of us involved in education and the students who depended on school for more than just lessons. After we were sent home in March of 2020, support staff like myself worked tirelessly to meet our students' needs. We knew some needed extra help, like the young man I mentioned. We tried different things, like assembling care packages of food and supplies, checking in when possible, but soon we were mandated to stay away. During the sudden shift to remote learning, teachers faced significant challenges trying to adapt their methods for online platforms. Many students lacked reliable internet access, making it difficult to stay engaged and complete assignments. Even those who could connect often found themselves in chaotic home environments where siblings, parents, or other family members shared the same space and noise levels were high. These distractions hindered concentration, and for many, there was no quiet corner conducive to learning. Teachers struggled to recreate the structure and support of the classroom virtually, while also bearing the emotional weight of knowing that some students relied on school as a safe and stable environment, a support system that was now out of reach. This period demanded immense flexibility, patience, and creativity from educators as they tried to meet students' needs remotely, knowing that the resources and conditions many students needed were simply not there. It became a liability for Quincy Public School employees to engage with students while we were all in quarantine. We were instructed to stay home and maintain distance. but I couldn't stop thinking about the students who relied on the structure of school. I sometimes drove by parks and playgrounds, hoping for a quick glimpse of my students to reassure myself that they were okay. But the worry lingered, the ache of knowing how much they needed us, all of us, and how little we could do to reach them. The impact of this forced separation was profound, especially for our youngest learners, pre-K through 5th grade. These children were abruptly removed from the routines and nurturing environments that had become their foundation. School was more than just academics. It was a protected place where they could connect with friends, receive encouragement, and feel cared for. Not to mention eat regular meals. Many of them counted on eating breakfast and lunch at school. Academically, the disruption was staggering. Young children learn best through hands-on activities, in-person instruction, and social interaction. Remote learning could never replicate the dynamic experience of a kindergarten classroom, where students learn letters, numbers, and social skills by engaging with their peers and teachers. As weeks turned to months, the learning gaps became undeniable. Students who had been making progress started to fall behind, struggling to stay afloat in a system that wasn't built for their developmental needs. Emotionally, the toll was even heavier. Many of our students were already facing tough home environments, and school had been a source of reassurance. But suddenly disconnected from those resources left them feeling lost, anxious, and alone. I heard stories of children crying from teachers who are working with them remotely because they missed their teachers and their friends. Parents shared how their once joyful children had become withdrawn or acted out in ways that they hadn't before. The young man I mentioned at the start of my speech wasn't an isolated case. Countless children were just as vulnerable, hungry for physical nourishment and the steadying support that school provided. The weight of this reality and feeling powerless to help them in the way we always had was something that many of us in education carried heavily during those months. When we finally returned to school, I remember the tension in the air, a mix of relief, anxiety, and determination. Every day we wore masks, sanitized and maintained distance as much as we could. I chose a clear face shield to make my smile and expressions visible, hoping it would reassure my youngest students. But even small gestures like this couldn't erase the strain. Students were more nervous, fragile, and easily overwhelmed. Not fragile like flowers, but fragile like a bomb. Behavior issues exploded. School personnel worked to understand these new problems, going to continuing education about trauma, things like that, trying to help these students who are having a hard time coming back to school. We faced a familiar yet transformed reality at the start of the 2020-2021 academic year. The joy of returning to our classrooms and our buildings were overshadowed by heightened angst among students, faculty, and staff. Many students had regressed, both academically and emotionally. Skills they had begun to master before COVID were now a struggle. In reading and math, gaps had widened, and the road to catching up would be extended for some. Emotionally, the effects were even more complex. Many students had spent months in isolation, and the return to a structured, bustling school environment was a shock. They clung to teachers and staff for support and comfort, while others withdrew or acted out in frustration. Simple interactions felt strange, even intimidating, and social skills that had just begun to develop now needed to be rebuilt. In the spring of 2022, I transitioned from my role at Lincoln Douglas Elementary to Quincy University, where I witnessed the pandemic's ripple effects on older students. Many were from historically underserved backgrounds and faced serious disruptions in their education. As a family liaison, I supported elementary students. But at Quincy University, I became a success coach, continuing my commitment to helping students from vulnerable populations. I listened to students share how they'd lost their senior year milestones, events like championship games, prom, and graduation ceremonies. The absence of these experiences left a tangible void. Seniors shared how surreal campus life had become during the height of the pandemic, with empty classrooms, limited interactions, and the vibrancy of college life replaced by a sense of isolation. It is my hope that my words underscore how deeply the pandemic disrupted education and the personal and social experiences shaping young adulthood. At Quincy University, the need for support has driven us to create tangible, compassionate solutions. One of our most impactful initiatives is St. Clair's, our essential needs pantry, which provides food-insecure students with access to non-perishable items, toiletries, and seasonal necessities like winter coats. For students, this pantry is more than just a place to get food. It's a reminder that our campus cares. Our department, Student Development, has shifted focus to holistic health, ensuring we meet students' academic, physical, and emotional needs. The aim is to create an environment where students survive and thrive despite the pandemic's ongoing challenges. Reflecting on the past few years, one theme remains clear: resilience. Our students have faced extraordinary challenges, yet they continue to persevere. But resilience doesn't grow in isolation. It requires robust support systems, people who lift students when they're struggling, guide them when they're lost, and celebrate with them when they succeed. Support at Quincy University comes in many forms. As a success coach, I work closely with students, especially athletes who juggle academic demands and sports pressures. Coaches are a cornerstone of this support, guiding students in their personal and academic lives. But the support they need goes beyond just us. This is where our community comes in. The resilience of our students can be fortified by a network of caring individuals, mentors, volunteers, and advocates who understand the challenges our young people face. I invite you to consider how you can be a part of this, whether offering internships, mentoring, volunteering, or attending campus events or programs at schools in the area. Every act of kindness makes a difference. Community involvement feels like it should be more direct and grounded. By reaching out and showing up for our students, we're doing more than supporting individuals. We're investing in the future of our community. Let's continue to build a network of encouragement and opportunity, where every student has the resources and connections they need to thrive. Together, we can lay the foundation for a stronger Quincy. Thank you.